So yeah, so we sorry, where's the okay, I'm gonna jump straight on that one. I tried to save some time for Lesley because she's the one with the most interesting things to say here today. It's and this presentation looks a lot like what Dave just presented. So it's another case study. This one is for a parking. So and it's about just going quickly through these objectives here. So it's a lot like what you heard before, but it's to really to quantify the impact of repairs and interventions on structures, on concrete structures versus, or if you compare with a complete replacement. And so, yeah, that's a case study. That's a parking garage over 5 different levels, and different repair options were taken into account and assessed, and in the end, compared with respect to their environmental impact. So quickly, so I'll be presenting the first part. It's been done by SIMCO and Nordastello. So Eric Sampson did the part for SIMCO. I'm presenting for him. For Nordastello, it was Aline Cobu, who did the calculations for the GHG emissions, and it's going to be presented by Lesley. She couldn't be here today also. So I'm going to go really quickly through the layout of the parking, the assumptions, a service life analysis that's been done with the different repair methods, and then it's going to be the calculations. So we're talking about a parking that's been built in 1973 in Detroit. It's a federal building, and we have, it's, well, personally, that's not something I've seen very often, but it's a mix of underground and above ground structure. So there's one level above grade, the level 5, and you have a grade level and 3 levels that are below the ground. The repairs were ongoing, so that's an example, but we used it for the P+Ex program, but it was not necessarily done well before. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not in conjunction with P+Ex, or that's a normal repair project. Yeah, that was ongoing. And so we used data from the past inspections and the reports. So everything that we had. When we didn't have the data, we interpreted what it should be, or it should look like, and that's what was used in the service life analysis. Of course, the main degradation mechanism in that case, it's like the gardener, it's salts, the icing salts, it's a parking structure. So very extensive corrosion damage, as you will see. And well, it's been, you didn't need, here it's written that you had breakout windows showing extensive damage. You didn't need breakout windows, actually. So that's the layout of the parking we've just talked about. So you have the parkings and the ramps on the left. When I was talking about corrosion, so you don't need breakout windows. You were seeing the damage already. We ran the analysis. SIMCO did the service life analysis with. We didn't have the exact properties, but we used something that was most likely the case here, an OPC 0.45 water binder ratio, not much, well, 375 kilograms per cubic meters of concrete. So we had that concrete in our database. We had the properties, so we used the same, and we think that what we really have there should look a lot like that. We used the real cover depths that were on the design documents. So we have a cover of 4 inches with at level 1. For level 2 to 5, the cover is 2 inches. It correlates with the GPR measurements that were made on site, pretty much, actually. So sometimes we don't have that much of a correlation, but it's in that case it's coherent. As I mentioned, the main degradation mechanism, it's chloride ingress. So the criterion that we were using in the analysis is initiation plus 10 years of propagation. It's not necessarily what happens in reality, but that's something that we often see in specifications to take the 10 years. And with the concrete, that's not really good. Like this one can make sense to have something like that. And the chloride loading was based on information from ACI 362 with the chloride exposure zones that we find in that document. So we use something similar that would most likely be found in this region for that type of structure. And the results we get also, it's coherent with what we observed. So in that case, little more than 20 years after construction in 1973, you had initiation of corrosion. So it's not exactly the case. It's not a detailed study, but it's around that time. So we know in that case, we have corrosion ongoing for about 30 years, something like that. So it's coherent with what we were seeing in the structure and the need for repairs. So like it's mentioned, it's for the most part, it matches with observations. Of course, it's just focused on the top surface. We don't have the information for the bottom surface of the slab. But what I'm talking about here today, it's mainly for the repairs of the top, the top layer of reinforcement. So you have two different types of repairs that were performed on that specific structure. For levels 1 to 4, it's a concrete replacement down to 5 inches below the steel. In addition to that, you have an overlayer just to correct the drainage that's been added, and then a membrane. In the analysis, the coating, sorry, the traffic coating. Traffic coating is not considered in the analysis. So what you get from the analysis is a basic case. Then you'll have more in reality because of the presence of that coating. Same thing on the right for level 5, the one that was above the ground, the top level, it has a different configuration for the repairs. So you have something similar to what you have on the left for the other levels, but in addition, you have a reinforced concrete topping on top of it. And you had the layer, same thing, the layer, the traffic, the layer of one membrane, in that case, it's not considered in the analysis. So you have something, we just consider that it could be damaged or there might be a leak. Of course, that might not happen. We wish it doesn't happen. So you get more, what we have here is a conservative case. And at the bottom, there's a remark. In the repair design, there was an ICCP also. Of course, it's not accounted for in service life calculations. So that's another aspect of conservatism that we have in the analysis. So what we're showing here is the minimum. But in reality, you have the ICCP, you have the membrane. So it might be, the service life will be much longer, probably, or for the most part of the parking than what we're showing. The graphs that you see here are a reproduction of what we got from the modeling. Modeling was done with Stadium. It's a model. The interesting thing with that model is that we take into account multiple layers of material because of finite element modeling. So we can add the repair concrete, replace concrete. We can add additional over thickness, a topping. So we were able to reproduce the chloride movement within the concrete. So what's left after the repair, how it travels within the repair material, what comes from the top. And then we have, so for level 1, if you look at the time, I don't, yeah, okay. Does it work? Okay, so you have the time of the intervention is here. This is what you had before. So chloride crossed the threshold, you have corrosion ongoing for a certain time. Then you repair, you remove the contaminated concrete below the steel, and then you have an increase after the repair. So we're remaining below the threshold. Level 2 to 4, same thing. Level 5, we have two lines here. So it's the same principle, but we have a line for the steel. This is the steel in the topping. This is the steel that was in the original slab. So of course you have no corrosion at all, or no contamination at all after the repair, but you have some contamination in the topping, but not to a point where you have corrosion. And now I think it's going to be Lesley's turn.
So this case study is really used as a preliminary example. We wanted to establish the credible methodology eventually can be used for many other cases. So we follow the carbon footprint methodology based on the ISO standard 14040 and 14044 for life cycle assessment. This is a reiteration. You have the preliminary results and you check back. And this is a very powerful decision support tool, and it helps to identify the main contributor to the impact scores and how to eventually minimize it. So in the LCA study, you always need a system boundary. So this proposed system boundary for this case, the top part is about the reference baseline. If we were to demolish the parking garage and then rebuild a new one. So you will see the building one that you enter to the phase 3 end of life stage using the benefit and loads. And then you create a new construction. You started looking at the stage A1 to A5. What are the production and construction impact? And for the actual project, we are looking at B5 stage, just the renovation activities. Of course, we have to remove some of the deteriorated concrete, covering the C1 to C5 stage, and then bringing the new material to do the repair for A1 to A5. So this is the final calculation result. The function unit, we have seen that we will, in both comparative case, we will sustaining the use of this building garage for another 60 years service life. So for the baseline scenario that if you demolish and rebuild, we will generate about 2,135 tons of CO2. And for the actual project that we will have 1,162 tons of CO2 per function unit. So the estimated avoidance of greenhouse gas emission is about 970 tons of CO2. This is the actual project phase. And if you have seen the conservative estimation for service life previously presented by Richard, we only consider the concrete and reinforcement. And if you only do that part of comparison, the saving is even bigger. So both sides is more taking the more conservative approach. This 970 tons of CO2, I think, put it in a perspective, is about 12,000 tons of cement you produce, or 4,800 tons cubic yard of concrete you would construct based on the EPD EPD numbers that presented by ACA and NRMCA. a little bit of breakdown of the project, and the bar chart there showing the big chunk of the orange part is actually coming from concrete. I think everybody understand this is the main contributor. But this project specifically was required to use low carbon concrete, and we did the estimation and using the database using the same clinker factor that still represents 75% of the total carbon contribution. So in summary, this case study showed that about 970 tons of CO2 equivalent was avoided compared to the new build case. This result was verified, reviewed, and according to the ISO 14044 requirement, achieving the maximum carbon savings will depend the type of repair solution we use, their carbon intensity, and also the service life of repair solution. If we consider early enough in the design process aligned with the service specific service life objective, this will help us to guide the decision making, just like cost benefit. So P+Ex is planning to publish this case study and then assemble more cases and help us to refine the methodology and also collect the data into the database. Eventually, we wanted to include the service life prediction for the future environmental declaration for a repair system. Thank you. If you have any question.